When people tell you who they are, believe them. Contrapoints is back in the news and everyone's mouths on the internet because she is spreading more of her centrist lib takes. And I have a lot to say about it. We're going to cover what she's been doing specifically and then also some of the coverage of that because, not to be too chronically online, but I have some critiques of the critiques. And don't get me wrong, 99% of my critiques are about Contrapoints. Her takes are irrelevant, out of date, dangerous and centrist at best. All that being said, that doesn't excuse some of the lazy, if not misogynistic takes that I'm seeing about her. So without further ado, let's get into all of that. Hello and welcome to Matriarchetype. I will be your goddess for today because we are addressing the elephant in the room, or I should say the shark in the room. I did have the privilege of having an IKEA trip recently, and on my humble budget, did I waste it on a small Blaha plushie? Yes, I did. And do I have any regrets? No, I don't. Look, they're adorable. Also, I may have done something to my hair. Any of you might notice the small change. If so, drop it in the comment. It's pretty subtle. I don't know if anyone will notice or not. Let me know. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to talk about Contrapoints' recent tweets, her recent online presence, the irrelevance, and how irrelevance breeds into rage bait. I'm also going to talk about how centrist and liberal her points are. But my main critique is going to be that we have known this. This is not new information. We covered this months ago. When people tell you who they are, believe them. And quite frankly, some of the reactions to her recent non-difference in opinion to what's going on in the world has been kind of aggravating to watch. I don't know. Maybe some people will agree. We'll get into it. It has kind of irked me a bit. It's been a bit like, okay, why are we so shocked at this woman saying these things? Did she play a key part in BreadTube back in the time of its heyday? And did that mean a lot of things to a lot of people? Yes. And did maybe perhaps the community perceive her to be further left than she was? Also potentially yes. Maybe she left baited. Oh my God, that's a new word that I'm really scared is going to come into fruition. Maybe there is, a lot more responsibility on her side, of course. But we have the responsibility now to know who she is because she's telling us, and to remember the lack of comments she is making on the global situation of things. Anyway, we're going to get into that and more. Let's start by covering her recent tweets pulling issues with Hasan Piker.
Contrapoints, when we started the Vanguard, was such a respected titan of online content creation. I looked up to her. I thought her videos were awesome. It has been astonishing to me over the last 18 months how she has quickly, and I say permanently, squandered that standing within pretty much the entire progressive online community.
And now she's randomly picking fights with the left, and specifically Hasan Piker. It's like a few days ago, right when all these articles were coming out, and the campaign rally with Abdul El Sayed, with Hasan Piker, right? And she says, I think we should all just pay less attention to him, not the president, the other one. And she had several, weird tweets like this one in response to the clip from PodSave that we already played.
As the Vanguard boys love them so much, quite rightly said, Contrapoints at one point was considered a highly respectable figure in the leftist community, in the leftist online community as well, at least. But that is an old opinion of her, and quite frankly, her lack of statement and then badly timed and poorly worded and terrible opinions of the Israel and Palestine situation was just the end for a lot of people, at least. And her recent video essay, people are using the lack of views to show that a lot of people are in the same opinion.
1.9 million views is terrible for Contrapoints. As you could see, her J.K. Rowling video, which is one of her better videos, performing at 7.7 million views, but she does on average get anywhere from like 3 to 6 million. That voting video is full of people disagreeing with her and saying, hey, it actually is okay to have standards when it comes to voting for politicians. And then a lot of people referencing the fact that she took a picture with Hillary Clinton. Either way, she
not only took a picture, she appeared in that episode of Hillary's dog shit
Amazon
TV
show.
It was like Hulu, I think, but it was like called like Gutsy Women or some stupid crap.
This isn't new information. We've covered this, as well as a few other creators that fall into the same group of, centrist, left of center, but still center creators that at one point were the heyday and the core of BreadTube, but nowadays are lacking in opinion. They're doing other things and they're living their best life after making a whole bunch of money, which, okay, say what you will, which we will say later. But for now, we can see the Vanguard boys are talking about how she has been making somewhat cryptic, if not mystic tweets about Hasan Piker, calling him out for saying like we shouldn't be focusing on him, bringing in misogyny and double standards into play, and also like not saying a lot but still appearing, and because she's doing that she's therefore saying a lot because of who she is and the platform she has. I'm going to get into more about this point later on in the video, but already a part of me thinks, you know, a lot of people found leftism and understood a lot more about the left through BreadTube and video essays and certain things that were happening in the culture at that time, the BLM movement, Me Too movement, the COVID pandemic. There are many radicalizing points for many people, myself included. And BreadTube was a huge part of that for a lot of people, also myself included. I'm here online now because of BreadTube. Just because that was a lot of radicalizing moments for a lot of people here doesn't mean that we can't critique and look back at that period in time with hindsight now, as well as separate the people that were a part of it now to who they were then, what they were saying then, and what they meant then.
There's no denying the large audience demographic for entertaining, thought-provoking, left-leaning content. How much of that transfers into organization, political action, and real-world change remains to be seen. I think a good general step forward might be if we reframed the passive consumption of left-leaning entertainment content into the first step towards the active pursuit to learn more about what can be done, how to get involved, and what theory is good to read.
Through various things that have happened to people, their material conditions, maybe this whole community, everyone has shifted left. Things have changed in the world. The world has got overtly more fascist. There is more needed. There is more direct action that's coveted in the community. And so we're just maybe seeing certain people that were centre-left staying centre-left. Bear in mind, a lot of people in that situation, Contrapoints, I'm going to add Abigail Thorne from PhilosophyTube, H1 guy, they are very intellectual beings in that community. They know a lot more than I do. I'm not going to ever claim to know more than any of those creators. So it kind of makes sense that they're steadfast in their beliefs, that Contrapoints is centre-left, and she always has been, and she always knew that within herself. Perhaps the perception of her being further left because of the personal radicalisation that we all went through to be end result further left is some form of parasocial commentary on her. Maybe we're expecting too much, that everyone is shifting left, so when they don't, they remain where they are. From our perception, they are shifting right, which is a fair comment to make, especially with everything that's happening in the world. But I think we should keep that in mind when we retrospectively critique them now as if they are shifting right. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're just not shifting left enough with the times, which is a fair critique to make, but very different in how we should voice that, if that makes sense. But two things can be true at once. That doesn't also take away from the fact that she has become irrelevant in the same communities that she grew in, as well as the commentary space. Her recent video, she didn't really say anything. One of the main things she brought up about the American empire and its current fascist fall was the alligator Alcatraz deportation situation, which was at point of release extremely outdated. So yes, she is very much irrelevant, and I think that her lack of commentary on modern stuff that people were much smaller creators were talking about, much more famous people with bigger platforms were talking about overtly. We've seen actors and actresses talk about Palestine. The Free Palestine movement has become a global movement very much, and for someone like Contrapoints to not comment on it was very much noted. So why are we still shocked now almost when she comes out with more centrist bullshit? Like, fool me once, you know, it's giving fool me once. Like, she's been irrelevant, she's still irrelevant. Okay, why are we all so shocked? Why are we clutching our pearls?
It's so different when you can do a million takes, and it's so different when you can write a script and sit in your room and be like, oh, I actually like it better this time, or oh, that time I sounded smartest, I'm going to keep that frame, that frame, that frame. And when the pressure's on and the studio lights are on, or maybe you're in Hasan's bedroom because he's invited you into his home to have this debate, you cannot press pause. But I don't think it would translate into a debate, particularly somebody with like Hasan, who's so used to being on the mic, can be so laid back, right?
As a creator that originally loved Majority Report, and that was a huge part of my like re-education, de-education, new education, I completely relate to them in a lot of ways and love what they do. But their commentary about how, she doesn't live stream, so she could never debate Hasan Piker in the same format. She would never win. She's a rehearsed video essayist. She sits and takes take after take and perfects what she wants to say. I was watching it thinking, okay, yeah, valid critique. She couldn't beat Hasan Piker in a debate, and I don't really have to see that. That's just two people debating. I don't think that would have an outcome. But what's so wrong with having two forms of the same content, two forms of spreading the same message? Her commentary has radicalized to the left a lot of people, and I think that's a good thing, and we need that in the leftist pipeline. But so has Hasan Piker in his own way. He's much more on the ground. He covers things on the day. He is a little bit more, I would imagine, appealing to a far-right masculine audience, whereas Contrapoints herself has admitted through the Doomscroll podcast, which we'll talk to, has a much more balanced audience of male and female expressing people. So why can't two both be credited as important? And we'll see this when we talk about bad empanada later in this video, which I know might be really dangerous, but I'm going to do it, when we kind of see the mask pulled off of what kind of comes across as bad framing and bad optics. But we'll get to that. I'm gonna not give away all my hot takes before I give people the chance to hear my valid critiques of Contrapoints. Don't get me wrong, this is not a Contrapoints apology video. Honestly, she's disgusting at this point to me, and I'm aware of my own leftist shift. For me to have come to that opinion of her, I'm also almost like not holding her unchanged stance as accountable as it looks like other people are. I'm saying, hey, okay, I've changed more than she has. She is still in the centre. Maybe she always was. Her opinions on Palestine were absolutely abhorrent to me, and Israeli apologia and genocidal apologia. So Contrapoints' tweets and her sad little attacks against Hasan Piker and other similar situations do come across as irrelevant and not worthy of adding to the discourse of, quite frankly. And if it wasn't for the reactions of that I had seen, I probably wouldn't be making this video anyway. So I'm here today to kind of talk about the other creators talking about her. You could class that as leftist infighting, but then I'm commenting on leftist infighting about Contrapoints by also having to critique other leftists, and that's like, is that just as bad, or is that, this is going to be bad. This whole discussion is commentary on commentary anyway, and I'm trying to improve the situation. I'm trying to help other creators, not pull them down. It's like the difference between critiquing someone because you like them and critiquing someone because you don't. All this to say and to reinstate, I love the Vanguard. I love what they do. I think what they do is extremely important. And I think we do need a mix of live streaming, fast response on the ground, quite literally the Vanguard, as well as thought-provoking, wider framed critical discussion and video essays. And I even would go as far as to say we need people on the centre left. We need the Bernie Sanders and the AOCs and the Contrapoints to bring people that are in the very centre shifting left, or centre right shifting centre. We need people at that point, as well as we need the Hasan Pikers and the Vanguards and the bad empanadas even. Bad empanada probably further left than me, but we need those people too. That's why it's a pipeline, and it's something that the right is doing far more successfully than the left. I think we can all agree at that at this point. To talk about Contrapoint's recent activity, I do want to make it so clear that I think she is being irrelevant. She's adding nothing to a conversation. Her centrist talking points are dangerous, like I think all centrist talking points are. And I do think that she is rage baiting. She is trying to get a response. She's trying to stay relevant. At least that's how I perceive it. And it is giving closer to Ethan Klein than it is Hasan Piker. And what I mean by that is Hasan Piker is on the ground. He's doing stuff. He's actively working. The trip to Cuba, the interviews he has with Democratic Party, various forms of people, to me, is a form of activism. I think, again, maybe we can all agree that at least. Whereas Contrapoints, to our knowledge, in her public persona, is doing nowhere near that. And for her to critique the leftist influencers that went to Cuba is giving bitter irrelevancy. It appears to me as someone that understands they're not actively doing anything themselves and are almost jealous of people that are, and they can't fight that internal lack of action, so they are lashing out. And it's to me, it shows that she is potentially becoming more aware of her lacking in leftist mindset, if that makes sense. I don't know how she thinks, but they are a bad taste. I think punching down Hasan Piker, or punching left to Hasan Piker, however you want to put it, at this point in time is thwarting the left. And to me, scratch a centrist and a fascist bleeds. Like, I can't help but see that as an active act to prevent the left from prevailing. There are a lot of content creators on the left that we could be bigging up rather than pulling down. And she's not doing that. She defines herself on the Doomscroll podcast as centrist left, the Bernie Sanders, the AOCs, a democratic supporting part of the elite empire state that just wants to slightly change the system to make it better for people. Now, to me, to people further on the left, that is still a level of privilege that the majority of the world will never even understand, to be in that position and to hold those beliefs is still outrageous, outdated. It has to stop. Like, yeah, we all know these things. Okay, let's talk about the Doomscroll podcast. Contrapoints did a 3-hour episode on the Doomscroll podcast, as well as a Patron episode, which I haven't watched the Patron episode, but I did watch this podcast in full. And I have several notes. Some of her takes were, ugh, at best, and then outright horrific at worst. There was critique of the left. There was critique of the right. She starts off talking about the left and her audience and where she stands. And she says things like how when she is being attacked on the left, she is solicited by the right. She is approached by the right in an alluring way to try and get her to join their side, which starts to make sense about why certain other creators on the left so easily seem to be shifting their mindset, like Anna Kasparian. I'm sure the right is intelligent enough to know when there are influential people on the left that it will benefit them having on the right. Like, let's put this into actual things. Like, I can imagine that is a conversation that, like, people at the Daily Wire are having, that people in Trump's administration are having. How can they, pull the leftist influencers or take them down or silence them? We almost know this to be the case, allegedly, in my opinion. So Contrapoints adding this to the beginning of the podcast, I don't see that as a point that can be critiqued of her. She's giving us information about what's happening. And quite frankly, some of the commentary on it seemed to misrepresent it at best, misunderstand it at worst.
Want to take a look?
Absolutely. Guess that you could,
for sure.
say like libertarian to, whatever kind of skeptic.
But I also think that like the right is so talented at kind of, in a soft kind of way, they love bomb, right? I mean, I've experienced it myself when in periods, this has happened on a recurrent basis for 10 years. As every few months, like some large faction of the online left decides that I am like the villain of the month. But when that's often happened to me, I often am reached out to by people on the right who are like, hey, like I see what's happening to you on Twitter. And that's like really horrible what they're saying to you. Like, do you want to come on my podcast sometime?
Right.
Like that's kind of their like recruitment method. Is like they reach out, they sort of exploit the divisiveness and the vitriol of leftist spaces to kind of like lure people out.
So division.
Yeah. Well, and especially because like there is like a genuine kind of like tall poppy syndrome type thing on the left. I mean, we've sort of talked about
what
this.
Is tall poppy syndrome?
Okay, so tall poppy syndrome is a notion that like tall grass gets cut, let's say. So like if you rise to a certain level of prominence, the left turns on you. Yeah. And I think part of that is the same hipster mindset that leads leftists to
Can we pause it one more time? That's such horseshit. I did think of another Contrapoints controversy, which was when she did the episode Hulu show thingy with Hillary Clinton, which we've talked about in the past. Obviously, a lot of people were pissed off about that. A lot of people were like, hey, do you not know all of the horrible things this woman's done? Do you not know how she was really opposed to not only gay marriage, but certainly any kind of state-funded medical support for the trans community? Have you thought about all of her disastrous foreign policy, yada, yada, yada? And of course, Natalie played victim then too. So that is coming back to my memory.
Yeah.
Basically faced with mostly backlash.
Yeah, that's what it seems like to me. That's most of what I thought was worth reacting to from what was otherwise a pretty boring and long-winded interview. You guys can watch the rest of it if you want, but like I said, it was pretty fucking boring. And I can totally see why Natalie's relevance as a thought leader on the left is waning.
But there were some fair critiques too. She talks about how she has lost a lot of her original audience because she's not relatable anymore. And whilst that may be an element of it, yes, there is a lot to be said about how it could be, because she has terrible takes now, and maybe a lot of people are opening their eyes to that. Maybe she has shifted away from the left more to the centre, and people are commenting on that as well.
a lot of people, I think I probably have lost a large percentage of my earliest audience because a lot of people liked me because they saw me as this kind of like, a queer transgender underdog who was like they related to. And then I got too big and they don't relate to me anymore and they resent me for getting too big. And it's like,
Yeah.
I think that then like caused like a kind of extreme moral, extremely like stringent moral purity that was expected of me and that I was not able to deliver on.
Can it be said that it's all because she's not relatable anymore? No, I don't think so. She's way more relatable than most other famous Hollywood stars that have a fandom. That's not a reason to not be famous. She's more relatable than Beyonce and Billie Eilish, who is a leftist. That doesn't mean she can't be popular. But the reason I think that she has lost a lot of her popularity is because what she's saying now doesn't reflect what most people think. The conversation has moved past her. That doesn't necessarily have anything to do with relatability, which is something that the Vanguard covered and kind of got right, I would say. And Natalie does say that she is a centrist. A leftist, a left-leaning centrist at best, but she does say that out loud. She even says at one point in the podcast she doesn't understand why so many people became a communist after watching her content. That was never necessarily her intention. She doesn't define as a communist, so she's surprised that that's happened.
Well, I have been often surprised by how many people become like communists after watching my videos, because I'm not and have never been a communist, and I don't think that I'm arguing for communism. But and yet,
what kind of communist?
Well, a variety of kinds. But the thing is, like, I have never really considered myself to be on the radical left in terms of the fact that I'm not what am I? I'm like a social democrat. Like I'm on the left wing of the Democratic Party. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Right. So like my favorite politicians are people like AOC, like Mamdani.
Just taking that at face value, why are we still surprised when she's coming out with centrist takes if she says that? Is there a sense of, okay, we can all capitalize on this right-wing shift she's having in the same vein that like Anna Kasparian has done and the other, that is a valid opinion because other creators have done, but is she's shifting right, or has she just always been this centrist? I don't know. Maybe I don't know enough. Is it still a shame? Yes. And does it deserve critique? Yes, as well. Like, yes, it's gross. She's saying horrible stuff. She defines her opinion on Israel and Gaza at around the 1 hour mark. And at first glance, it sounds like she is giving some kind of explanation as to how she came to the conclusion she did. But if you scratch the surface, she's comparing leftist victimhood mentality to Israeli victimhood mentality, which is kind of wild because the leftists aren't currently doing a genocide in Gaza and Lebanon as well.
A backlash to the visible spectacle of Israel's ethnic cleansing, which kind of, I think, has led many people to have an almost obsessive fixation on Israel and Zionism as like the great Satan. Some people are going to want to retaliate for the hundreds of videos they've seen of children being blown up. That sort of worries me, not just for the victims of the retaliation, but for the continued like escalation of violence that it implies. I don't have an answer. I don't know what to do about it. It's just a thing I'm watching like a train wreck.
She talks about how she worries that people's response to Israel blowing up a bunch of babies and civilians will cause the people watching that to respond and act accordingly. And she worries what backlash that will bring. And it's kind of like, hey, the cognitive dissonance to understand that if you have a state doing such violence and people respond in a way, then it's chicken and the egg, isn't it? Maybe that original state shouldn't be doing that original violence. And why are we focusing on the response to that violence, not the violence itself? I hope that makes sense. I'm not claiming to be intelligent enough to comment on this stuff, but even I can watch that and have a critique of what she's saying. It's very, very apologia adjacent at least. But this is the thing that's not shocking from a centrist, elitist, democratic shill, which we know her to be. And so I just can't get my head around all of these thumbnails with highlighted capitals, like bringing this level of heat to who she has become now.
When I say I'm a lib, I'm really talking about tribal affiliation, meaning that I am passionate about voting for Democrats in presidential elections. That seems to be the main point of contention that I have with the more explicitly leftist, not liberal tribe. Because I think a lot of young men are horrified by the possibility of belonging to a coalition wide enough to include their mother. And so I think that a guy like Hasan is appealing because he's like manly, you know, and he, I think, scratches an itch for a lot of young men that's not dissimilar to what the more right-wing, sinister manosphere influencers
Yeah, they
do.
want to be attractive and
Yeah.
muscular and successful.
And they want a
yeah.
daddy to tell them how to be a man.
Ah,
But I do think there's like a little bit of a gender war that kind of underlies some of this like lib-left dispute where, again, because like a lot of people who are passionate supporters of the Democratic Party, like their issues are things like abortion and things that I know no one talks about that anymore, but you know,
yeah, that disappeared.
it vanished along with the environment.
She also does talk about Hasan Piker specifically in around the 1 hour and 20-minute mark. And she talks about how he is appealing in the left to a more masculine audience. Even though he did a census on his live stream recently and it found a more balanced audience than he's ever had, a large percentage of LGBTQI plus community feel safe in his community. I'm included there. And there are more female expressing people watching him than ever. And I think that that is a good thing. I think that shows not only that he is a safe space, in my opinion, but also that I think that has influenced him, and I think that that influence is a good thing. I don't think that necessarily, though, Contrapoints was critiquing him in that space, and yet I'm seeing so many responses to that podcast saying things like she's dugging on him, she's attacks, humiliates and stuff. Yes, she's instigating and poking and prodding, but she's nowhere doing worse than what everyone else is doing or has done. That's nowhere near as bad as Ethan Klein suing Noah Sampson. That is crazy. That's crazy to me. Suing Noah Sampson after everything that happened. And for context, if you don't know, Ethan Klein originally threatened to sue Noah Sampson. Noah Sampson did one of the most intelligent things I've seen on the internet by saying, instead of raising money for lawyers for that case, I am going to raise money for the Palestinian cause to prove that I can do it, to Ethan Klein, as well as putting this to good use and putting that money to a cause that I want to support and supporting the Palestinians, like his whole entire channel has done. And yet Ethan Klein is still continuing to do that afterwards, which is the most horrific. I don't want to even say my opinions of that, lest I get sued as well. How is that not worse than a few jibes at Hasan Piker? Nowhere near as bad as what most people on the right are saying. Laura Loomer is calling out for Hasan Piker to get arrested. Yes, what Contrapoints is doing is abhorrent, but I just can't help but want to put it in balance and into perspective of everything else happening in the world, as in the same way as it should be ignored. Ignore her rage bait. There are other fish to fry. As a community, we should all be absolutely backing Noah Sampson right now and putting pressure on Ethan Klein to stop what he's doing. At around the 1 hour and 45-minute mark, she talks about how, through history, she originally supported Hillary Clinton, she didn't think Bernie could win, and then Hillary lost, and so she changed her mind and changed it back, and we get a bit of an insight into her political beliefs over the past few democratic election cycles in America.
To me, is a very black-pilling for me, because it seems like it's less possible to make a coalition than I used to. Because in 2017 I had this moment of optimism, right? I had been, full disclosure, I mean, I'm sure that people already know this, but I was like a Hillary Clinton supporter in 2016. I mean, in part, not that I disliked Bernie, I did like him, right? But I thought at the time, you know, I had worked on Obama's campaign in 2012. And so I remember just how like I used to canvass, I used to do phone calls, and just to get people to want, I was like, we're trying to give you health care.
Yeah.
And it was like pulling teeth to get people to be like, blah, blah, but it's socialism, and he's gonna make death panels, and it's this Islamic communism, and it's you know what I mean? Like just and we're talking about the Affordable Care Act, not at all a radical piece of legislation, right? But like people have been so like this like anti-socialist strain of American paranoia was so strong that I felt that Bernie Sanders could not win. Then Hillary Clinton lost. And that caused me to rethink things. I was like, well, okay, my intuitions may be wrong, because I would not have thought Donald Trump would win. Maybe I was also wrong about Bernie Sanders. And so I kind of moved a bit to the left then and felt like, look, we can maybe have a kind of leftist Democratic Party, and then AOC emerged, and that was very promising in 2018.
And again, I can't help but bring up Bad Empanada and his recent response to this. We see him open up by typing up keywords, playing that clip, and reacting to it by breaking up what she's saying in real time.
This is a 3-hour fucking long interview that she gave, and we're going to mine it. We're going to mine it for parts. Let's see what she has to say about genocide. That'll be a fun one. Here she goes. She's complaining about the left, guys. Oh, I can't wait. Wait, does she mention Hillary Clinton? Wait, that's more important. That's way more important.
People already know this, but I was like a Hillary Clinton supporter in 2016. I mean, in part, not that I didn't like, not that I dis.
She was like LARPing as an anarchist cat girl while she was a Hillary Clinton supporter. This was when she was making supposedly radical left-wing video content, by the way.
Liked Bernie. I did like him, right? But I thought at the time, I had worked on Obama's campaign in 2012, and so
Jesus
I remember
Christ.
just how
Everything about her. Like, if you ever believe this person was a radical, I don't think you knew what radicalism was.
Now, I'm not going to tell anyone how to do their job, okay? He's been doing this a lot longer than I have. But as someone that sat and watched through the whole thing, that is just not a valid critique of what she was saying. How can you even digest what her points are, good or bad, or abhorrent, without actually understanding the context of where the conversation is? It came across to me, honestly, as lazy. And I say that as a commentary channel on YouTube that just dyed her hair half pink. Okay, I'm not unaware of the irony there. To just search Hillary Clinton in a search bar of the transcript on YouTube and then react to it, badly if I may add, is kind of kettle black for someone who is very quick to critique other people. I don't know, I'm just saying, not to punch down on the left. Do what you do. We need more wild saying statements on the left as well. But bro, that just weren't it for me. I don't know, that just wasn't it for me. I cannot help but want to comment on the optics of the Vanguard and Bad Empanada and all of these male expressing creators talking about Contrapoints. And you know what? The trans woman in me is like, hey, at least gendering her right. But maybe the bar should be set a little bit higher, and maybe we should be a little bit more self-reflective of what looks like misogyny adjacent behavior.
Okay. So Contrapoints is this YouTuber who makes 2-hour-long videos that are less insightful than the average Wikipedia article about pop culture. And generally, about 20 minutes in, you realize that the main reason that she made the video was because she lost a Twitter argument and wants to complain about it at length. And she changes costumes more times than she cites sources throughout the video. And she makes one video every 2 to 3 years. Because she just doesn't work. She literally just does not work. She doesn't do anything. She works like maybe 30 minutes a week, if that, maybe an hour or two at most, and lives a life of complete and total leisure, while she gets paid a completely ridiculous amount on Patreon. All that she makes is best described as slop, right? It's slop videos that are masked by incredible overproduction, pomp and ceremony, basically. Don't pay attention to the fact that there's basically nothing insightful being said here, and that what's being said is actually really stupid. Because she's wearing nice costumes, and she spent way too much time thinking about lighting and ordering props off Amazon.
Bad Empanada opens his little clipped live stream with just dunking on her, saying she makes nothing, she makes slop, she makes a video essay a year, she's just punching on people. Oh, some of those are valid critiques, dude, don't get me wrong. But critique what she's saying that's bad. Don't just dunk on the fact that she makes video essays, because you wouldn't say that about FG Signifier that's technically doing the same thing. He focuses on one main video a year, although he does a lot of live streams and stuff as well and B-sides. But that same critique, is it coming from a place of actually critiquing Contrapoints for only releasing one video essay a year? Or is it coming from, at this moment right now, everyone's talking about something bad she's doing, so I'm going to just throw on some extra critique of her and not really care about the optics of whether it looks misogynistic or not? I'm probably going to get reamed in the comments of this. I honestly, I don't care. I will learn from it and I will take the critique myself. But I couldn't help but see all of this critique of her, some of it very valid for what she has said and what she is saying. Like I covered when the Tabernacle did exactly this. But his critique of her didn't have this misogynistic undertone, which I'm sorry, the Vanguards did.
But she says belligerent misogynists who want to yell at women all day are like 30% of the electorate. Wife beaters, live streamers, that whole genre of guy. Maybe he really can help the Democrats, which is totally crazy. And we're going to play the clip for everyone to react to.
And we believe that...
Okay, you, dude. I mean, seriously, you, old lady. Shut the fuck up, you stupid, idiotic old lady. Suck my dick, old lady.
Yeah, again, who cares? That's not even like what? He's not, it's not misogynistic. It's not anti-Asian. It's not like he even said, he's not like even called her a bitch or something. You know what I'm saying? Like you could have responded to that in a way more intense or problematic way. That's just Hasan being Hasan.
The optics of when they're laughing at Hasan Piker swearing at this old lady. And yes, was the critique of the old lady valid? Yes. Did it look misogynistic will it look misogynistic to some people? Also, yes. Is them laughing at it going, ooh, also bad optics? Yes. At what point do we have to have a conversation on the left about misogyny? Like, do I think how the Vanguard and Bad Empanada were reacting to her podcast and her recent stuff and covering this is good? Do I think that? No, not personally. Watching a 5-minute clip of the start of a podcast that represents a 3-hour discussion and saying, oh, I didn't really think there was anything else worth covering, go and check it out if you want to. Do I think that's responsible? No. I mean, if you're going to react to a form of content that has a lot of political commentary to say, maybe more than 5 minutes at the opening is necessary. Have I always held myself to that standard? I would like to think so. I don't think I've ever reacted to and added more conversation to a piece of media that I haven't fully consumed, or the majority of it consumed enough to find what I want to say about it. Oh my gosh, maybe we could go back in my previous videos and that's not true. But I did a recent deep dive on Alexis Blake. I watched hours of her content. I'm doing a ongoing breakdown of everything J.K. Rowling has done. Have I covered every single thing she's ever done transphobic? No. I would need a supercomputer at that point. But do I think I've done as good a job as I can with my resources? Yes. Do I think the Vanguard did as good a job as they could with their resources commenting on the Doomscroll podcast? No. And if you're not going to cover it properly, maybe just don't. Maybe leave it to other people that are. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
The thing that I have been circling around this entire video is that when your politics turns into simply opposing the villain of the moment and of your movement, whether it be Trump, Israel, America, Western imperialism itself, fascism, or colonialism, all things that are worth opposing, you stop asking how to dismantle the hierarchies underneath them all. I mean, personally, I believe this is why I've seen a huge rise in things like trans misogyny in leftist spaces online recently. That mirrors the same dismissive rhetoric I talked about earlier with how liberals treat trans people.
I generally don't know if I have enough to make an episode here. I don't know how this is going to be received. I hope, though, that anyone in my audience that disagrees with me can explain why in the comments, and let's just try and keep it civil. I cannot express enough how this is not meant to be a negative moment from me to the Vanguard or Bad Empanada. I don't know them enough to do that. I don't watch everything of theirs enough to have a critique of them. If I were going to do a video on them, I would spend much more time to put my facts together. What I am commenting on is the recent discussions of Contrapoints. The critiques against her are very valid. To me, it's abhorrent what she stands for. The democratic stance, to me, as someone not in the American empire, affected by the bullshit happening now, and that has shifted left as much as I have, is still so fascist to me. The Democratic Party are fascist to me, in my perspective. If you want to be a war criminal in any way, I don't with you. Okay? Bleep that out, editing me, because it's YouTube. And so if she is relating to that and identifying anywhere near that, yeah, of course, then fine. You're part of that. You're part of the problem to me. But I've known that about her for at least a few months now, when she came out with that horrendous statement about Israel. As someone that has a commentary channel and does pick a certain person to talk about and a certain thing to talk about, that is a hard juxtaposition to wrestle with. And I understand the hypocrisies there that I need to maybe talk about. Maybe it is the optics. Maybe it is the framing. We can critique what Contrapoints is saying without it coming across with this misogynistic undertone. And maybe the equality that people truly have in their hearts in the left, that they don't consider men and women as unequal, can lead them to say things in a completely blasé, plain way. I think Hasan Piker is also someone that does this, like that clip of him swearing and berating the Vietnamese old lady. Having no innate misogyny can mean you speak in a plain way, but the optics of that as a man in this climate can come across misogynistic. Offense is something received, it's not something intended. And I say this sometimes to my husband, who has not a misogynistic bone in his body, but sometimes he will say things and I say, the optics of you saying that as a man in modern day society comes across as icky to a woman, and you have to be aware of that. I'm sorry. With 62 million views to the sleep website, with files running the country and the world, country of America and the world, with everything going on in the world, just because you don't have misogynistic viewpoints doesn't mean you shouldn't be aware that the optics of what you're saying are misogynistic. In the same standard we would hold to racism and how we talk about other minorities and intersectionality, I don't think that it's too much to ask to expect the optics of what is being said to be taken into consideration when we critique someone. And all I'm saying is some of this critique of Contrapoints seems to be stepping a little bit outside of the valid critiques of her and just into just misogyny. Let me know how you felt about this video. I wonder how hot this take was. Let me know what you think. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. As you might know, my ongoing J.K. Rowling series is still happening. The next episode will be out in a couple days. We're going to cover 2022. I'm really excited about how this series goes. I have to film, I think, 1 or 2 left, but the majority of it is up. And if you want to join my Patron or members, you can see the rest of the series now. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. I know this was a bit weird compared to regularly scheduled programming, but I hope you took something from it, and I hope some people maybe even agreed. Please do let me know if you do below, and so I can feel like if I'm not off the mark. And if you do have critiques of what I'm saying, please let me know, and I'll learn from them as well. I don't claim to know everything, and I don't think people should. Have a wonderful day. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you soon. Love you lots. Bye.